Today, my guest is Tiago Alves. How you all created a connected ecosystem. Where did y'all start and how did that come about?
We wanted a cloud-based system where we could have all of our data that for guest journey, profiling, preferences.
In the world of hospitality tech today, and there's a lot of great data that can come from that. Where did you start and how did you start kind of chopping wood, so to speak?
To involve the different teams, the different departments since the beginning of the project. All of them can give us a little bit of input, but it could be important for the overall project.
That everyone has a voice. How did you enable the property champions?
It's not that we empower them much, they actually empowered themselves by participating on the project.
I think the biggest thing when we talk about connectivity is the iteration of so much changes so fast in hospitality and data and all these things to understand that you have to kind of continuously iterate.
Our development teams are one of the teams that never stops. Once they finish a project, there is someone else from sales team, from marketing, from brand that come up with another idea and, to keep them busy.
Hey, y'all, how are we doing? We are back for another episode of Hospitable. Today, my guest is Tiago Alves, the Director of IT Ops for Belmond Hospitality. Tiago, welcome to the show, my friend. I'm glad to have you on.
Hey, Rob. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me. Really excited to have a chat and see what things going on our hospitality world.
Yeah. Well, I'm really excited because, we met a few months ago at the IHTF in Villamora, and you had a great talk on the things that you've done with Belmond and kind of the full ecosystem you've created there and connectivity, but also the adoption process, which I'm really excited about. But also want to highlight there was a pretty cool thing where y'all won the Resort Tech Innovation of the Year award, which is pretty awesome, right? So, how exciting was that for you and the team and kind of seeing all the hard work paying off?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly the key message. So it's the hard work paying off. Obviously, we were super excited when we were nominated for the award, and I was lucky enough to be there and receive the prize myself. So all my team was jealous. And to be fair, my part on the journey or on the tech that we won the award with, I was very little involvement, so I just was there literally to collect the prize, which was great. But yes,
But
all
also
the team was
talk, right?
very excited. Yeah. So all the team was very excited. I think it's again, like you said, just the hard work paying off, which is really great for us because seeing this kind of technology that is used to be seen like just another tech. It's actually not just another tech. I mean, it's proving to be something amazing, and it's benefiting the field teams on our properties, which is even better, and the goal out of it for sure.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit. How did you get to Belmond? Tell me a little about your kind of path. You worked in the space before, so tell me, how did you get into the role at Belmond? You've been there for quite a little while now, right? About 8 years.
Yeah, I've been almost 9 years. Yeah. So I have all my career. I've been working in hospitals. Started like 20 years ago, more or less. So I started with Micros Fidelio, then moved to Swisscom, and then when I was at Swisscom, there was an opening at Belmond in the Southeast Asia division, based in Thailand, Bangkok. And I applied, and I got the job, and it's been a nice 9-year journey with Belmond, which has been remarkable and amazing. I'm really happy and proud to work for Belmond.
I love it. And for those, most people out there probably have heard of Belmond and know about it. But for those that maybe not know what Belmond Hospitality is, maybe give us a little background on Belmond and the whole thing.
Sorry. So Belmond is part of the LVMH group. It's an hospitality company, so we have 42 properties around the globe in different countries, different regions. Part of these 42 properties, we have 36 hotels. We also have 2 safari camps, and we also have luxury trains and luxury river cruises in France. So very
Amazing. So a little bit of
diversified.
everything.
Yes, yes, a bit of everything. Very diversified. Very interesting portfolio. So yeah, very excited to be here.
So we're going to kind of dive in. Your role, director of IT ops. There's a lot of stuff that y'all have done, and at IHTF, your talk was really about how y'all created a connected ecosystem and how long it took. It took about 4 or 5 years. So take us back when you were looking, having all these different properties, but not only like your traditional properties, but you have the resorts, you have the safari camps, you have the trains and river cruises. When you were going through this process of evaluating tech and creating an ecosystem, where did y'all start and how did that come about? How daunting was that in the beginning?
Yeah, I guess it all started because we had all these different properties sitting in different PMS databases, meaning different sets of data, duplicated data, different profiles for the same person. And we thought that, we had enough of it and we wanted to have a central database where we could have all of our data that could be our source of truth for guest journey profiling, preferences, etc. And also we wanted a cloud-based system, so we wanted to get rid of the server footprint on-prem, and we wanted to move to a cloud-based solution, and that's what pushed us to look for different partners. Now it was not easy because again we operate in several different countries with several complicated different legal requirements.
Mhm.
So we had to look for, or we had to find a partner that one was present in all the countries we operate. That second had a system that would comply with all these different legal requirements, but also a partner or a system that was seasoned and robust enough to take us from where we were, different PMSs, different databases, to a centralized location where we could really leverage the data that although was there, the data existed but was not organized, was not in a status that we could use and take advantage of it.
Yeah. You highlight, an interesting point where in the world of hospitality tech today, and obviously, a little bit of Omniboost because we had a couple of conversations about it. And I wish I had met you 5 years ago as we talked about the project y'all did. It's really great because there's a lot of awesome systems out there, from PMSs to accounting platforms to all the things in between. And there's a lot of great data that can come from that. The hard part, though, is getting everything to connect, talk to each other, duplicate data, sitting there, owning your data, and all of these different pieces to become that single source of truth, as you said, right across stretching out. We have a lot of duplicate. And so I think that's a scary thing for a lot of people because there's so much stuff on the market. There's a lot of noise, but understanding how things connect. So when you started this journey to create this single source of truth, where did you start and how did you start kind of chopping wood, so to speak, on a project like this? Where did the base layer come in? You talk about looking at partners, doing it yourself. What did you end up deciding on? And then how did you kind of build and structure the cadence around it?
Yeah, and I think it's a very good question and a very good point. So, obviously, again, like I said, the beginning of what we wanted or how it started was to have a centralized database with a cloud-based system. So those were kind of the premises, right? And again, now to find the right partner with all that ticked all the boxes that we wanted, or at least that ticked the majority of the boxes, because I understand that sometimes it's difficult to find one vendor that ticks all the boxes.
Yeah.
We know that. Um, so what I believe we were very successful on was to involve the different teams, the different departments since the beginning of the project. So it was not a group of people from the corporate office that were deciding where we should go and what system we should pick. No, we selected different key stakeholders from different properties, different regions, different departments, so that all of them can give us a little bit of input, even if it's just a small part of the input, but it could be important for the overall project. And I think that's where we are very successful, and that's where we started. So we got people involved. Was obviously difficult because some of them were in different time zones, etc. But try to have everyone involved, give their feedback, so that we could pick the right player or the right partner for us to move forward. And I think the other thing that was important or that we benefited from this is that as these key staff members were involved since the beginning of the project, since the early stages of configuration, etc., they also gain an inner knowledge of the system itself, and a knowledge that was not only for the corporate team, but the knowledge that would stay on property with their
Mhm.
teams. So if during go live, if their teams had an issue, they know that, oh, that guy was involved on the project, so he should know. Or even if you wouldn't know, they might point to the right person that was involved on that part of the configuration. So I think in all aspects was beneficial to have not only the top management involved, but even the field people that work on the system every single day to provide us some feedback on how we should configure. Now, this doesn't mean that we would attend to every single request, right? We,
Yeah.
we still wanted a standardized system, a standardized database that would meet our goals, but at least, or nonetheless, a system that would also support the operations and the field teams.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting piece of a starting point, right? We look at decision making process, and a lot of times, obviously you have the buy-in at the top. Those that write the check, and they know that things will be done. But sometimes when you live too far away from the actual problem, it's easy to say, "Oh, we're going to do this, and it's going to stretch, and it's going to standardize, and it's going to work." But that's from a 30,000 foot overview, and so taking it down to the base level, and I think creating the cross functional team, and I think it's also a really good point that you made is you're not going to be able to tick every box. You can tick all the boxes in a certain way, but they're not always going to be ticked the way that maybe you thought because there's limitations in terms of connectivity and systems and whatever. But to look at all that from a big picture, pull everything out and say, let's put it all up on the board. We can always remove. It's harder to add halfway through a project, right? So put everything on the board is a great way to do that. And thinking about it from the front line all the way up is a unique challenge and one that people always think they do, but it's also hard to do because you need to know who to call in and who to kind of take feedback from. And then how do you analyze that feedback, right? So that, when you take that feedback, how does it fit into the wider schema of what you're trying to build out, right?
Yeah, and we're talking about big systems as well. So it's talking about PMS, POS systems. So there are systems that have major impact on the daily operations on an hotel, right? And we also know that there is always an aversion or a pushback when there are major changes happening, right? So having this property team members also involved on the project, it also helped us motivating the change, right? Because the rest of the staff would see, oh, okay, but we have people from our property involved on the project, so give them more and the rest of the teams more confidence.
Yeah.
And again, these property champions, we call them, property champions, would also help us from a corporate level motivate the project and ensure the rest of the teams that things are progressing on the properly manner, with the right planning in place, etc.
Yeah, I think the idea of the champion, right? We talk about this all the time in different areas of the business, but internally, right? Having a property champion, making sure across all the countries that you're in, across all the resorts and hotels and all the things that somebody either at the property or from your region is involved, meaning that everyone has a voice and it feels like everyone's being heard and taking their opinions being taken into consideration of the wider schema of things. And so having these property champions. So how did you enable the property champions? This project wasn't happen overnight. It took a number of years. So how did you enable the property champions to, feel empowered to bring everything along, provide feedback? What was that cadence like of leveraging these property champions throughout the process?
Yeah, so again, we try to select people from again different departments and different properties, and we had them participating on the project since the beginning. So they, since the very beginning, they would know what we are trying to achieve, what were the biggest challenges, and I think they felt empowered, and that was our objective as well. They felt empowered because they saw or they realized that their inputs were being heard, and that they could actually somehow tailor the system to better meet their needs as well on the property level. So it's because we know it's a PMS system. It's not rocket science, but each property or each hotel operates in a different way, right? Or even if you compare an hotel to a safari camp, things are different from one to the other. So having the property champions being heard and knowing that, okay, my input is valid, and the team is understanding that this is important, even if sometimes their requests were impossible for us to do, because again would fall out of a legal requirement, or not what we wanted to achieve in terms of data consolidation. But still, they were part of the project. They were heard. They could brainstorm with other peers from other regions as well, that not only again help them to possibly build a better system, but with all this cross exposure and engagement, they also probably understood different ways of operate, or do things in a different way that
Mhm.
could help them on our daily activities. So I think, yeah, it's not that we empower them much; they actually empowered themselves by participating on the project. Was which was something very nice to see, to be honest.
Yeah, that's super cool. I think it's really easy for you to get focused in your way of doing things, whether it's because the hotel standard versus the region that you're in, the city that you're in. Things the way you run a hotel in New York City is very different than the way you run a hotel in a small beachside town in Portugal, right? Because the amount of people and the way things are being done. So having that kind of cross collaboration also empowered really your teams to learn from each other and take best practices, which is sometimes hard to do when you start scaling across the globe, right? So for them to kind of see that happen, and that to kind of naturally come out is a really cool piece of the project that you always think could happen, but you never know if it really is going to. And so it sounds like it did, which is awesome.
Yeah,
Have you
yes, and
guys
again, they,
go
they
ahead?
kind of build these connections,
Yeah.
and if they have an issue with the system, it most likely, if it is the same system, most likely other people is having the same issue, right? So
Yeah.
they build internally this kind of connections and network that even after the go live and during operations, it helps them, because if they don't remember something, or if they are having an issue, they know, "Oh,
Yeah.
okay, but I know that person from the other region. Let me see if they have the similar issue, or if they know how to turn it around." So yeah, it was very positive for sure.
Amazing. So as you kicked off this project and you had these kind of goals in mind, what were some of the talk me through a little bit of once you got going, was there ever a moment of like, oh shit, we might have taken off bitten off more than we can chew? Or obviously problems are always going to rise when you're doing something this big, but talk me through kind of the project timeline and how things went, and kind of where that momentum really carried, and maybe some sticking points where it felt like you were kind of running up against a wall.
Yes, and it happened for sure. So we actually had a timeline very different than what we thought about a timeline that was very different than what he actually went to be. I think, if I'm not mistaken, we started this around 2020. Sorry, we started around 2020, and we had more or less a plan to be finalized by end of 2022, or beginning of 23. We just finalized it at the end of 2024, so kind of 2 years late. And I think this happened not only again, because it was a major change. But I don't think it's because we were not prepared for the change. It's one of the reasons that I described at the beginning. Being able to comply with every single legal requirement in every single country we operate. That's proved to be very challenging. Uh, Not only because the partner we chose operate in the majority of the countries that we are in, but not in all of them. So they actually had to initiate all those developments of their legal requirements with the with the local tax authorities or government authorities to certify the system. And that dealing with governments, we know that sometimes there are delays that are not predictable,
Hmm.
and that delayed a little bit the project. So that I would say that was one of the biggest challenges, the legal requirements. But it also helped us in a way because we realized that the timeline was dragging out, and we really wanted to have all properties up and running with this system as soon as possible. So we actually started to develop our own internal API
Hmm.
that would help us to connect these systems where the integrations were not possible or not ready. So we could tell the partner, okay, prioritize on the legal requirements and leave the integrations to us. We'll develop the integrations. So I understand that not everyone is or all the other companies are lucky, I would say, as Belmond, that we had support from the management. We managed to get a development team in house. I understand that that's not always possible, and we were very lucky on that, but it helped us.
Hmm.
So we had the partner and the development, the system or the vendor development team focusing on the legal requirements, and then we were focusing on all the other integrations that we built through our API. And interesting enough, 2 or 3 years after, we started, I believe, with 5 or 6 integrations through our API, and now we have around 40. So
It's
we
amazing.
continue to escalate and build more and more and more, and now it's almost one of our must keep systems is our own develop in-house API, which is great. And again, open the doors for something else and for other stuff. We have now recently went live with our own booking engine, again developed in house with our own integrations, making sure that all the fields that we want to leverage, all the data that we want to use. Is through the integration, so we don't need to wait on third parties
Hmm.
to develop that for us or to be dependent on what data sets they have available for us. So we
Hmm.
developed our own integrations, our own booking engine, and yeah, we are loving the journey.
I love it. Yeah, that's the interesting piece, right? When you think about the integration, obviously, what we do is the integration connectivity, and you make a good point about maintaining it and also the mapping piece, right? There's all kinds of different things that could go wrong. And I always like to joke, hospitality. At the end of the day, it all comes into you have all your systems, and you end up in accounting. We always like to joke kind of hospitality accounting, but anytime we talk about hospitality integrations, it's like 85% is standard out of the box, right? These certain things. There's always that 15% that's kind of changing because a resort is different than an independent boutique hotel. The chains are a little bit different than your river cruise, right? And so you have to kind of find where you can take those data sets and have standardization versus a little bit of customization. So it's really cool that you're able to find a way to piece all that together over time and then iterate off that. I think the biggest thing when we talk about connectivity is the iteration of so much changes so fast in hospitality and data and all these things to understand that you have to kind of continuously iterate over time.
Yes, absolutely. And our development teams are one of the teams that never stops. Once they finish a project, there is someone else from sales team, from marketing, from brand that come up with another idea, and to keep them busy, and they are happy with that. So it's really cool to be able also to be part of the team. I'm not a developer, but I know the work they are doing, and it's really impressive. All these integrations that they build, and sometimes from one week to the other. Obviously they are not too complex, but having the platform or the basis there, it's just a matter of understanding what you really want, and start building it, because all the bases are there. And I think that was also very important, and again, one of the main drivers for this big system change is that we knew we had the data, but it was no way close to be used. So
Yeah.
let's build the foundation so that whatever comes after, we are sure that we'll be able to accommodate.
Yeah. So as you went through the process, and it took a little bit longer than you expected, right? Um, from where you started with the initial premise of the project to where it finished, were you able to hit all the boxes? You were able to tick all the boxes? Were you able to get everything implemented that you wanted? And how did it feel when it was like, all right, we're going live? And then when you did all that, was there any kind of, uh, oh shit moments at 3 a.m. when you wake up thinking something's going to break, or did everything end up kind of going more smoothly than you expected it to?
Um, well, the first couple of properties that we went live with, obviously was not easy, because again, we were not also even used to the process of the migration itself, from one system to the other. Also, we went to from a vendor to a completely different vendor, so my data migration was a no straight away. So we had to find ways to migrate that data, not to lose it. Uh, but also in the process, doing the as much as cleanup as we could do, because we didn't want to end up with the same data complexity, or mess, if I must say, that we had in the past. So yeah, the first couple of properties were a bit bumpy during the migration, but then again, we got different people involved, from different departments, even for the go lives and migration. So we kind of created a task force, and basically we masterized the process. So by the fifth migration, we knew what to do. We knew more or less how long it would take, so it
Mhm.
was easier to plan. Now, yes, even if you plan to the second or to the millimeter, there is always something that will fail last minute.
Yeah,
But that's IT, right? That's technology. You
of
cannot
course.
predict everything. But as long as we had, and as long as you have a right process and a very well established process, if there is something that comes out or diverts a little bit, I'm sure the rest of the team will be able to adjust, and that's basically what we did. Um, but back to the other question, if we ticked all the boxes, I don't think so. I think we are still working on it, to be honest. But I think we also knew that would be impossible for to have everything ready for the beginning. And again, we have the old properties onboarded only for a few months
Yep.
ago, right? So we are still making sure that everything is as we wanted. And again, another thing that helped us when the vendors or the partners that we wanted to integrate with, or the different systems coming together, what helped us was our own API as well. So whatever the vendors say, well, I can't do that, and we say, okay, what fields do we need, and we will make sure that we'll deliver.
Mm.
And on the other side, they say, okay, I need this field, so I don't care how do you send them to me, as long as you send this data to me, we'll treat the data, we'll send to the other vendor. And that simplifies a lot, because sometimes on this process is what also delays and complicates, is having the two vendors or the two systems talking to each other, because sometimes they don't reach to an agreement, or it takes ages for them to certify the integration. And with our own API in the middle, we took advantage and we said, okay, you don't need to worry. We certify the data. It's our responsibility if something goes wrong. We take ownership. You, from one side, you send us the data. From the other side, you tell me how do you want me to send you the data,
Mhm.
and helped us a lot on the process, because yes, as much as you choose, as much as you pick the right partner, there will always be something that they cannot do, and I guess it's also fair for
Yeah,
them. So having our own API helps a lot.
I mean, that's amazing. And you kind of doing, the Omniboost sales pitch a little bit, right? That the idea is that sometimes you have these vendors and you have different systems, and they're not perfect products. There's no perfect product on the market. So sometimes they can only
Absolutely.
send things in a certain way. So that's where having your own kind of platform layer where you can take the semantics, and understanding the semantics, you could take the data and then clean it and maneuver it, right? Which is essentially why Omniboost exists, which is what you built a team to do, because sometimes that's just how it has to be, because it is the nature of IT, is right. You can build something, but not everything is going to be able to be perfect and talk to each other, which is where the uniqueness of the connectivity layer comes in. It sounds like y'all really found a way to make that possible through the own API, which is really cool. As you're kind of going through all of these and really putting all this into play, right? Hindsight being 2020, it's live, you've done these things. What do you wish you had thought of sooner? And, you know, is there anything that you kind of wish that you had implemented earlier, now that you know kind of what you know? If somebody was thinking about doing something similar, right, what advice did you give, with your hindsight being 2020, to look at or pay attention to early in the process?
Yeah. So we didn't start the project with our own development team, so that came into place later. So I believe it's my opinion, but I also think it's would be a common opinion within Belmont. Once we started to pick all the vendors and what we wanted to take out of those integrations, if we have thought of developing our own API back then, we'll probably would meet the deadline that we have established at the beginning of the project. But also, I think it would simplify a lot throughout the process, because again, once we or when we went live with the first properties, not everything was ready yet, because we knew that we had another 30 to migrate, and we knew that we would make it better down the road. So if we had all these integrations or our own API built in since the beginning, I believe that would have been very helpful for
Cool.
everyone.
Yeah, understanding, having that semantics layer, understanding that you're going to need some sort of semantics conversion layer is a good takeaway for a lot of people early. And I also think that one of the things that was really cool that you talk about your story is it's really easy to kind of want to do this perfectly, right? That's why I asked about ticking on the boxes. Is that so many times we try to build these big solutions and we try to be perfect, and then it just keeps getting delayed. Sometimes just putting out, getting it started, and then iterating as you go, knowing that, hey, it's not 100%, but it's dang close. And then we're going to just learn from it and iterate, and taking those lessons. Because I really think that it could have been really easy to just pause everything if you don't kind of continue to iterate and learn, and kind of continue to just chop away at it, which sounds like y'all took that to heart, of just, we're going to keep doing this. We're going to not always be 100% perfect, but we're going to get it out, test, and iterate quickly and move.
Yes, yes, and again, one of the things that motivate us to do our own integration layer was, that was one of the reasons. So we went live with a couple of properties. We knew that down the road there will be integrations with different third party systems, but at the point in time that we went live with the first properties, those integrations were not there. So there were um, a certain amount of work that we wanted to automate, and that was our plan, and that was what we promised to deliver. At that point in time, was work that was still manual, and what we wanted to achieve kind of somehow went backwards, and now we were kind of doing more manual job than what we were before. Um, so we had to be patient as well for with our field teams,
Mhm.
and take that ownership. and understand that yes, we promised this. At the moment, we are not delivering it, but we are sure we will. Maybe not in the right time frame that you guys wanted, and that's always a tough conversation to have, right? So when you promise, that everything will be nicer and better after a big migration, and turns out there's some more tasks or clicks, or that the teams out of their daily busy activities have to do even more, then it's not something nice or it's not a nice conversation to have with the teams. And again, I think that's what kind of motivated our own building our own integration layer, because we wanted to get the properties live, like I said, and so we wanted to have the vendors focusing on the legal requirements, which were really important. So you can live without an integration, but you cannot live without the legal requirements, right? You
Mhm.
cannot operate, not issue an invoice if it doesn't comply with all the settings or all the requirements that the government wants it to. Um, so yeah, having our own development team helped us a lot, and I think down the road we almost ticked all the boxes. I guess my operations team would say there are still more to be ticked, but yeah, we are definitely getting there.
I love that. And as went through and put all this in play and you started rolling out, and we start off the conversation talking about adoption, getting everyone to kind of buy in and adopt and learn. And that's a lot to do. Obviously, you're doing a kind of phase rollout. What was, or how did you really work with the teams, from a corporate level, but also locally to really adopt the new technology, adopt the new way of doing things, knowing that at times it created some more manual work. At times it was frustrating. Obviously, the legal requirements is a huge piece, something that, we operate in 85 countries. It's crazy, right? Because we have to build all that into our integrations, and we know how hard that is. So how did you kind of work through that with your teams to really get everyone bought in to adopt all these new changes as you rolled it out?
So again, I believe that property champions really played a crucial role on that aspect, because again, they were involved since the beginning of the project, so they knew what were our goals. They knew what we were trying to achieve. So when the rest of the team would come up and say, "Hey, but they promised a system that do X, Y, Z, and at the moment it just does the X. Where is the Y and Z?" So being someone from the property, telling them that yes, it's true, but yes, we are working on it and it's going to be delivered. Taking a little bit longer than what we expected. It's right, but we are working there to get there, and eventually things will be ready for everyone else to use. And I think that helped. So it was not just the corporate people telling them that yes, it's going to be there, which they could think, yeah, okay, you are just telling that, so I keep quiet. But it was someone from their teams that they knew and that they work every day, and that really helped motivate the project and motivate the change. Even as we know, I mean, we are human beings. I believe that we as human beings have aversion to change, and a natural instinct to push back on changes. So it's always complicated. It's always difficult. But that's, I think that's why we also pick the right people from the right properties to help, moderating and motivating the change. Which again, we knew it was going to be challenging. It has, big system changes, the PMS system. Everything else on an auto tech wise runs around the PMS system. So we knew that changing it will be very complicated, very challenging. But I think at the end of the day, it was also successful. So we are proud of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it sounds like, you thought about putting all the right things in place, and knowing that challenges were to come. It was never going to be perfect, but if you had the right mentality, communication, and having those champions to be a part of the progress across the 4 years makes a big difference in really driving the adoption and growth, which is absolutely amazing. So, congrats to you and the team on the awards that you've won on
Thank
it, but
you.
also the rollout. And I know it's still early in its go live, go live, right? There's things that could still happen, but really cool to see all the hard work and success pay off, and really cool that so willing to share your story and highlight. As we kind of come up to the end of time here, I always like to ask kind of this question: what are you most excited about in hospitality tech as we look towards 25, 26, and the growth of the space, but also kind of what you built? What are you excited about? What are you looking at that you know that you're going to have to adjust after what you just did for 4 years, right? Is there anything that you guys are already thinking about in terms of that or excited about?
Yeah, so I think one of the trends is AI, right? And we are paying our attention to AI as well. But independent of it's the use of AI or anything else, I think what we are trying to focus now is, again, we moved and we migrated these systems. It's giving us what we wanted. So now let's focus on how we could improve even more our operations.
Yeah.
Is it by automating a report? Is it by selecting a setting to have this box ticked by default, because we know that 90% of the times the receptionist will go there and tick it. So these kind of things that you may think, yeah, okay, but it's nothing special. But if you save like 10 minutes a day per receptionist, just by not having them to tick all those boxes, at the end of the week is, I don't know how many hours, and at the end of the year,
Hmm.
and it's time that they can spend with the guests
Hmm.
and do what they are really good at, which is providing support to the guests, meeting what the guests need, and that's how hospitality is about, right? It's work for the guest basically. So
Yeah.
we are a people industry. So instead of having our teams behind the computers, um, not spending as much time with the guests as they should. So that's what we are trying to focus, trying to automate as much as possible, or predict, automate the predictable, so that we can focus on what is really important, which is providing exceptional journeys and exceptional experiences for our guests.
I love that, and the whole idea behind this podcast, Hospitable, is right. We're how to make hospitality more human through technology, right? We still work in a human business, human to human, right?
Yes,
H to H, and
absolutely.
that's what hospitality is, and it's amazing. And that's where these things make a big difference. And I always talk about something small, right? Whether it's time or doing manual entry, you normally make an error. Think about that extra tick or forgetting to do a tick, or doing a manual accounting entry and it's $2 a day. But that's $2 a day over 365 days across 30
Yeah,
hotels. That's a big mistake. We don't always think about the cost of a human error, whether it's 10 extra seconds here over time, or it's a dollar here or a few cents there. Over time, that makes a big difference, and it takes away from that end of the day guest experience and making people feel welcomed at your hotel and the experience you want them to have, whether that's super high end luxury to business travel to kind of a quick in and out. You want to still feel when you walk into a hotel that you're getting the expected service that you really want, and that's a human interaction, right?
yeah. And again, I think our teams also expect a system that works smoothly. So they don't want to worry about the system; they want to worry about their operations. They want to worry about their guests. And yeah, that's why it's very important that you have a stable system, a seasoned system that you can rely on, and that, again, I think it's impossible to say that the system will be up and running, you know, 24/7, 365 days a year, but at least the majority of those time the system is working, the system is providing what it should, and running as smoothly as possible, so then the field teams can really focus on what is important, and instead of thinking if they did the right process during check-in or check-out. They know the system works, so they should focus on something else.
Yeah, I love that. Well, Tiago, I appreciate all the time. I know that it's end of day for you, middle of the day for me is our time zone differences. As we close this out, if anyone wanted to learn more about what you're doing, what the team at Belmond is doing, where can they learn more information? What's the best way to get in touch with Belmond or you to learn more about, you know, the organization?
Well, they can definitely get in touch with me through LinkedIn. I believe it could be possible the best or the fastest or easiest way. And then depending on the question, I might divert to different colleagues or different parts of the business. Um, and depending as well on the question, might need to get some approvals. But rather than that, yes, I'm very happy to help. Reach out to me, and I'll try to help the best way I can.
Amazing. Really appreciate that. I'll make sure to link the Belmont website as well as your LinkedIn profile in the show notes. So if you're interested in connecting with Tiago, all you got to do is click those show notes and click on the link, and it'll pull up his LinkedIn page. Tiago, thank you once again for the time, energy, the story, and sharing with us all the things you're working on. And really excited to see how things continue to evolve for you and your team as you continue to go live and add new functionality and features. So thank you so much, my friend. Appreciate you.
No, thank you. My pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. Yeah, it was a pleasure.
Awesome. Well, that is it for this episode of Hospitable. As always, be a tier one, like, rate, subscribe, all the things. If you or somebody you know would be a great guest on the show, please reach out to us. Again, Tiago, thank you so much. And until next time, stay well.